wearing the same suit, so you can recognize me. For those of you that are new, I'm going to nerd out a little bit on Asheville, North Carolina. That's where I'm from. But Asheville is up in the mountains. Beautiful scenery, you all know it. Bluegrass music, beer. We've got 40 breweries in town now in our MSA. It's kind of crazy. Like any quirky little mountain town, we have men dressed as nuns on tall bikes that eat fire. It's a typical little place, right? Asheville didn't start this way. It started as essentially a city that was also a resort town. This is a shot of Asheville from the 1800s. 15 years after this picture was taken, this is the same location. We like to say that 3 T's made Asheville: trains, tourism, and tuberculosis. That once the train lines came there, it brought a flood of tourism and it really changed our city. We had the second streetcar line in the entire country. Richmond, Virginia was the only one that had one before us. Presidents came to visit, presidents still visit. During the 1920s, we were growing at 20% in population every year of the decade. It was insane, our growth. We were the second largest city in North Carolina. We were the biggest, we were bigger than Charlotte, Raleigh. The only city that was bigger than us was Winston-Salem. So let that wash over you for a second. During that process, we achieved the highest debt per capita of the entire United States. We thought we had $5 million in the bank when the Depression hit. Turns out we had $18,000 in the bank. A little clerical error. Our city council was indicted and the mayor committed suicide 3 days after the indictment. So we call that leadership in Asheville, but that's kind of how we entered the Depression. Not a good sign. Thomas Wolfe, again, this is what he had to say about Asheville. This is what he wrote in Look Homeward Angel. Asheville has squandered fabulous sums. They've flung away the earnings of a lifetime. They've mortgaged those of a generation to come. They have ruined a city, and in doing so, they've ruined themselves, their children, and their children's children. Some really kind words to write in a book about your hometown, right? So, you know, his family was threatened. His parents were told never to let him set foot in town again. His second book was called You Can't Go Home Again, for obvious reasons. So I'm making a little fun at this, but it's true. It's just, he was essentially saying the emperor has no clothes. To show you the damage to the children's children, in 1976, we finally paid off those bonds. It took us 40 years. So in that period, we couldn't do things like urban renewal. We couldn't do any of that stuff. We couldn't damage ourselves the way that other cities did because we were essentially bad debt. To show you the damage of getting, you would think that this would be a proud moment to get out of it. I mean, it was proud for Asheville. You see that we've got 3 guys who get Miss Asheville to wear a tiara and they burn the last bomb. But the crazy thing was, it's the 3rd headline in the paper. The lead headline was somebody dying in a prison fire in some other county. Right? This is the damage to our psyche. It would take us decades to get out of this. When we got out of it, we started doing what other cities did. We cut a highway through the north side of downtown, which became the Crosstown Expressway. The coup de grace was when we blew the mountain open. This is Bowcatcher Mountain. I love that it's on a postcard. Come visit our cut, right? Y'all are rock climbers, right? Why don't you come and hang out there? On the other side of the cut, the mall happened and our downtown died. A lot of people come to Asheville and they see this wonderful place. They don't realize how flat on our face we were for a number of decades. So this is a shot of Asheville. This is from the 90s. That's a 1996 Chevy Celebrity in the picture. And look at this wonderful fixer-upper opportunity. Why don't y'all come up to Asheville and put some money into that, right? You know, you could blow a cannon off and not hit people on the street. So we had all these boarded up buildings. We had all this stock that we didn't know what to do with. The Greek choir, these children's children, would rise up. Anytime somebody they'll try to do something urban, that'll never work here, don't even try. We're not urban people anymore. This is the way America is. We're spread out now, right? We want this freedom to drive around. This is what we told ourselves what we were. Julian Price in the upper left, he's the founder of our parent company. It's a real estate development firm called Public Interest Projects. Julian was a philanthropist who essentially wanted to put his money to work in real estate development. So 75% of his money goes into the sticks and bricks, fixing up buildings and stuff like that. We reserve 25% to seed businesses. So for us, there's a logic in how cities grow. There's a history for tens of thousands of years on how we operate. We just basically steal that. Put retail on the ground floor, residential above, or mixed use above, call it a day. There's thousands of years of human habitat that have shown us the way. We just followed that. So we actually started the first vegetarian restaurant, Laughing Seed. The bank said it would never work because nobody eats vegetables apparently in North Carolina. And Asheville is now one of the top 10 vegetarian cities in the country. This is one of our buildings before and after. This is Malaprop's bookstore, and above that is apartments. So for us, you know, a lot of this is telling a story. Julian also he passed away in 2001. He also had his own magazine back then. And this is a quote from Arthur Frommer that he uses in the magazine, and I love this. It says, among cities with no particular recreation appeal, those that have preserved their past continue to enjoy tourism. Those that haven't receive almost no tourism at all. Tourism simply doesn't go to a city that's lost its soul. That's a quote from Arthur Frommer. Now it's I feel kind of weird saying this to you all. I mean, you get it, right? You know, this is the value of your heritage. This is the value of your place. Interestingly enough, I mean, look at the picture of when he published this in 1993. Look at the picture of the Grove Arcade behind that thing. It was boarded up. 15 years after he published that, Arthur Frommer's magazine would list this as the #5 place in the country to visit. Last year we got listed #1. Trying to cultivate a neighborhood called the downtown, and it became a tourism event all of a sudden. It's because of that scarcity of our urban environment in our country. So what I want to put in your mind is, what is a city? What are we doing in what we live in and what we create? What is this place that we create? So my city is a finite boundary of land that has to be managed, right? Much in the way that our real estate development company is a $15 million portfolio that has to be managed. So my city is a corporation. If you look up the word incorporate in the Oxford Dictionary, it says to constitute a company, a city, or other organization as a legal corporation. There's very little difference between our real estate development corporation and the city of Asheville, other than the city of Asheville elects a board of directors through a popularity contest, and that runs that corporation, right? And I don't mean that in a bad way or pejorative way for those elected officials in the room, but that's how we run cities. So if I have a $15 million development portfolio, does my city understand the economics of what's going on? You know, what's my city worth? So if you think about a billionaire, this is Dan Gilbert, the owner of Quicken Loans, but also the Cleveland Cavaliers. Sitting next to him is Warren Buffett. Do you think they understand money? Do you think they understand the cash flow? So what's Charleston worth? You know, you're the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. If my city is a $12.8 billion corporation, what's Charleston worth? Charleston, I'll give you the number. Your taxable value is $18 billion. Your county is $46 billion. So if you add in your physical investment of your streets, sewers, and et cetera, you're probably another $30 billion. So actually, you're about the worth of Warren Buffett. So let that wash over you. This is what it is to run a city. This is the cash flow of what it is. This is massive amounts of capital investment that you all are shareholders in. So how do you measure this stuff? How do you manage it? What's the data that's going on behind that? Are you testing it? Are you bench testing it? So we like to look at land or buildings as a crop. When a farmer has a field, the farmer doesn't go out and just till all the soil, does he? No. The farmer is running an economic model. The farmer is thinking of the cash flow of that crop in the marketplace, what it costs to fertilize an acre, what it costs to water an acre. All of that is an economic model before they make a decision on the crop. And this has got a cash flow or else they don't grow something. So if we look at this building, this is one of our buildings that we rehabbed. Well, we took this building from a $300,000 value to an $11 million value. That represents a 3,500% increase in taxes on a parcel of land that was already in the portfolio. Just shot up 3,500%. Do y'all have a 401k plan that grows by 3,500%? Wouldn't that be cool? Now, it's not money that we're getting. It's money that the community gets. The community now has 3,500% more taxes to invest in other things. Make more greenways, make more affordable housing. We don't care. Just make the city better. Make the corporation better. So people say to me, like, well, Joe, that's not fair. We've got this Walmart over here at $20 million. That's almost double the value of your building. And it pays about $220,000 in property taxes, which is significant. On the right is my house. Those are my dogs. They think they're lions. They're a little weird. But we do that to freak our neighbors out, by the way. But so we pay $2,000 in taxes. We're on a 1/10 of an acre. So if a 1-acre cookie cutter fell from space and hit my neighborhood, it grabbed 10 houses, or about $20,000 an acre. 10 houses, $2,000 a pop, this is what you get. If you take that 1-acre cookie cutter, fly it in space, and drop it on the Walmart's paying $220,000, but it's on 34 acres. So on a per acre basis, this is what you get. That's the cash flow. So that's all that you manage is a finite boundary of acres. Your county, Charleston County, doesn't go off and annex the next county. That's all that it's got, right? And you all, by the way, you all are county shareholders of Dorchester, Berkeley, or Charleston. Let's not forget that the cities are, people that live in the city are into corporations. So our building, if you had an acre of that, this is what it would produce. So I was presenting this in Colorado And sometimes you have to make things simple for folks in Colorado. So I was like, well, if you had an acre of land to grow something in Colorado, what are you going to grow? And they got the joke. This joke works in a lot of states these days. I mean, you get it. It's a cash crop, right? Now, in North Carolina, one of the things that we've heard is, all right, Joe, we don't do it for the property taxes. We take the loss in the property taxes on a Walmart to gain all the retail taxes. Now, it's not that retail was created and then all of a sudden we started shopping more. I think the question to ask yourself is, retail often is a displacement. It's not like we didn't have toilet paper or couldn't get access to toilet paper before Walmart showed up. But let's just go ahead and assume that Walmart created new retail sales. The city gets a portion of the retail sales. The rest of it travels up to the state. So we get 27 cents of the 8 cents on the dollar of sales tax created, or about $47,500 an acre, which is more than the $3,000 in property taxes. Or if you want to look at it as a total take, the total combined retail and sales per acre is $51,000 for the Walmart. That's just our property taxes on the right. Now, to be fair, we've got retail on the ground floor and in the basement, so that's another $414,000. But now you're cooking with gas, right? Jobs per acre. I mean, how do y'all want to look at this? When you look at our building, when we stack the numbers up side by side, we even have 90 units an acre in that building in residential, if you do the math on it. Do y'all understand this? I mean, it's just real simple doing the math on it. So, people ask me, like, Joe, dude, what's your problem with Walmart? Why do you hate them? And I'm just going to go ahead and out it. I was presenting at the International Association of Tax Assessing Officers. It's actually a great conference, but it makes a planning conference feel like Burning Man by comparison. It's incredibly square. I mean, these people are really, really into numbers. This guy gets up and presents to the assessors. Now, there's 2,000 assessors in the room, and he's up showing spreadsheets about how cheap his buildings are. And he's saying, look, if you think we beat up Procter & Gamble, you need to see what we do to our general contractors. We make the cheapest buildings out there. I'm in the back of the room going, oh my God, this is amazing. This guy's brilliant. He's getting all of his tax bills lowered in one meeting, right? Now, the assessors are agnostic. They're basically like, all right, if you're making a pile of junk, it's a pile of junk. We can't call it something different, right? That's our tax system. Now, the citizen side of me, my heart was collapsing because that's all I hear him doing is yelling into the room, I'm gonna pay the lowest taxes possible. I don't fault the player, I fault the game. And this is a game that you all are trapped in. So I rolled up to the microphone and I asked him, I said, Mr. Terrell, what's the useful life of one of your buildings? And he barked back, 15 years. We'll be out of that building in 15 years, maybe 20, but we want to start the depreciation cycle again so we can move through it. Again, they're doing math, they're very smart people. You're worth more than all of Walmart combined, right? So just be aware of that. So there's a math that's going on. Now that's just the city side. Let's get into the county side. My city sits inside Buncombe County. My county residents are awesome. They got our state legislator to call us a cesspool of sin. I was on the Downtown Association panel with that report at that time. We're like, yeah, maybe they really didn't mean it. So we did a really polite thing. We sent a reporter to talk to Senator Forrester, and his other comment in the newspaper was, I didn't mean the people of Buncombe County. There's some good people out there. It's just that downtown part. That's where the freaks and weirdos are. That's a cesspool. Our state moved in, took our airport away from us, took our water system. We're suing the state on that. I mean, count your blessings here, people. This is what's going on in our community. So we have to illuminate our county residents to understand what's going on. I'm a county taxpayer. I'm a brother of my peers, my brothers and sisters out in the county. So when they hate on me, I'm actually sending them money. So if you look at this on the right, the far right is that the average taxes paid to the county by city residents. Me as a county taxpayer, this is what I pay per acre to the county in county taxes. To the left of that bar is what somebody out in the county pays to the county in taxes. So we produce more county wealth than what people out in the county do. This is when you bring the mall into the picture. You see $8,000 an acre in county taxes, but let's not stop there. Let's go into downtown. This is our building in downtown on the right. You can see the mall in the center of the image at $8,000 an acre. So what's good for downtown is great for the city, but it's unbelievable for the county. When does my county step in? Any county officials here? When does the county step in and build a dog park in the downtown or help us with a streetscape project? This is a cooperative corporation. They need to be working together. And the county can actually help invest in the whole region, basically growing more wealth for everybody. So I want you to realize I don't have a finance degree, I'm not an MBA, I'm just an architect doing some numbers. This is really simple stuff. We do this with cars, right? We gauge productivity of cars. on a unit basis. When we talk about cars, we don't talk about them on a miles per tank basis, do we? I mean, could you imagine being at a cocktail party saying, what's your miles per tank? You'd get laughed out of the room. We'd all be driving Ford F-150s, if that were the case, that has the most miles per tank. But you understand the productivity is the gasoline that drives that unit. It's the gasoline that moves the car and propels the car. So it's miles per gallon. The numbers change. I didn't change anything. There's nothing magical here. We should all be driving BMW Acetas at 70 miles per gallon. I'm being cute here. It's actually a fun-looking little car. It's very dangerous, though. That's the front door on the whole thing. If you have a head on, you're stuck. But we've done this all across the country. We've done it in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and it's real simple math. That if you, on a per acre basis, this is what it all looks like. Mashing up all the data, this is what it looks like. And it's real simple. It's a real simple story, folks. As you stack stories, you're essentially stacking your wealth. And on the right is what a 6-story building produces in county taxes per dollar that a county resident is paying on the far left. And you see that the Walmart and the mall aren't that far above residential on a productivity basis if you make it down to the unit of apples to apples. And again, don't fault the system, just realize this is the game that you all are playing in. Just be aware of that. These are your controls, this is your policies. Now, when people see this, they're like, you know, Joe, this is a real simple concept to grasp. That's all you have to do is per acre. It's got to be more complex than that, right? And it's not. And then when you finally have that moment where you're just like, oh my God, this is so simple. Why haven't we discovered this before? People ask me all the time, I'm like, look, we patented putting wheels on luggage in 1972. That patent expired in 1991. For those of you that are old enough to remember luggage without wheels, realize this, we put a man on the moon before we put wheels on luggage. Did we not know what wheels were? You know? Come on now. So just realize sometimes simple stuff takes a while to kind of sink in. So Ian McHarg actually talked about this in his book from the 60s called Design with Nature. For the landscape architects in the room, this was part of your course. And he basically says money is our measure. Now he goes on to criticize American culture. He's Scottish, but he was teaching at the University of Pennsylvania, and I love this. Money is our measure, convenience is the cohort, the short term it span, and may the devil take the hindmost of its morality. You know, you see this pattern development. This is what people want today. Well, that's great. They're putting in future costs into the community that you can't afford 30 and 40 years down the road when you have to start fixing that infrastructure. That's the reality of your math. This is the American paradigm. Think of your grandkids. So taking the city, we can do things. We can look at information. I can see inside your heads with an MRI and see data, right? I can make an informed decision about what's going on inside your body. Can you do an economic MRI in your city? So using GIS technology, we can move the city aside. And we're used to mapping things like infrastructure, the buildings that are built on that infrastructure, and also the ologies, geology, hydrology. But can you split the gap between nature and the man-made? And can I show you economic policy writ large? Can I do a model of what's going on financially in your community so we can all see it? So this is Asheville, this is my county. This is the way that we typically talk about my county. In gray, that's the part of the national forest, so it's not paying taxes. It's out the door, right? It's not producing taxes for us, we don't care about it. That big red splotch there, or purple splotch, so you see when you go from green to purple, the hotter the color, the higher the value, that's the Biltmore estate. The Biltmore estate is worth $100 million in one house. So when Mr. Cecil shows up, William Cecil, the heir to the Biltmore fortune, when he shows up at a commission meeting, everybody genuflects and thanks Mr. Cecil for gracing us with his presence, right? He's a very important man. But he owns 8,000 acres of land. He's got the biggest house in the country, not only Asheville. So of course it's worth a lot of money. He's got the biggest gas tank, 8,000 acres. So on a per acre basis, rather than saying let's look at the total value, let's look at the value per acre. The map changes. Let me just show it to you in 3D. Can y'all guess where downtown Asheville possibly is? And what we learned from this model is not only can we see downtown Asheville, which peaks at about here, we can also see Lessons in Black Mountain, which is a little town of 12,000 people. You can see Main Street popping up in Black Mountain. This is not a massive metropolis. So it's like little baby bear next to mama bear, right? This is the pattern of urbanism that we used to build intuitively for thousands and thousands of years. So y'all are probably wondering about your numbers. This was a lot of fun. You guys are incredibly distracting. You have way too much cool stuff going on, and we kind of nerded out a lot. So I'm gonna try to show as much as possible. So I wanna thank Michelle for this quote I put you up here.
you're surrounded by water, and it's not necessarily just your ocean. As you go in, you've got water. And this is something you have to contend with. This is something you are, this is who your landscape is. Be aware of that. It's an incredibly important map to have from Michelle Map. That's easy. Cartography joke, this is great. So this is the way that you look at your miles per tank, so you can see the hot parcels. Again, those are massive tracts of development up in Dorchester County. But again, if you do a per acre analysis, this is your 3-county MSA. Here's your per acre assessment, and here you are removing the water. So this is showing you the waterfront. We just want you to be aware of that. There's a transference value of water. You all understand that along the beach, right? So here's just stripping out your city, and here's your 3D. So what you can see here, obviously the island effect of what's going on with the islands. You all know that it's not, you don't have to be a rocket scientist in real estate to understand beach value. We all know that that's expensive. But you can start to see that what you cultivated in your urbanism, right? The value of your downtown writ large over the region in 3D. Zoom in a second. And so there's lots of stories here. I'll try to break this down into different typologies of development patterns, but stripping out the beach is probably the best way to look at yourself. So the beach is something that God gave you, an ocean. But you can see here what your ancestors created in urban value. These are buildings that were created that don't have any waterfront view. And you can see the potency of that. It's the urban environment, it's that environment, that sense of place that you all created or your ancestors created that has returned itself in value over time. So just focusing on the city, the core, again, this is obviously distracting for us. It's just giving us so much information. Your land area, or sorry, the property taxes that the old city pays is about 13% of the county's property taxes. Yet it actually shows up statistically insignificant in land area. It was less than 0.5%. That doesn't even show up in the chart. So the rest of the city is taking up is producing 17%, but only 8% of the land area of the county. So this is how you can help gauge potency of your footprint. Did y'all get that? Going into the MSA now and taking the whole rest of the area, the old city is about 8% of the value of the entire MSA, but even more statistically insignificant in land area. So, and you can see what the city and the rest of the county is. Again, these are all charts that we'll have available for you all, but this is your data of your productivity. Y'all got quiet. Is this too nerdy? You cool with this? All right. You know, we're trying to figure out, well, what is it that makes you so special? How can you put a number on it, or how can we understand it better? For those folks, I guess, in Mount Pleasant that are afraid of tall buildings at 4 stories, like this, the world's gonna fall apart, that when you look at just your buildings over 3 stories, you're less than 0.7% of a footprint, yet it's producing 10% of your wealth. You know, again, this is something to be aware of, that you can actually harvest wealth. And I think that what happens is we miss the conversation that really should be happening, which is a design conversation. It's not the height that's the problem. It's the design of the buildings that people are clamoring for. And we need to make that part of the conversation. So taxable and non-taxable, you all should know this. Your taxable land is the stuff that actually produces taxes. Your non-taxable land is stuff that doesn't. Be aware of how much you have. Your cities, your core areas, we always do this test. This is like hitting on your knee with a little hammer, like the doctor would do when you go into a physical. We're always seeing what your test is. And you're not any different from other people. Asheville is 44% non-taxable, so you're about par with that. Typically, core areas have a higher percentage of non-taxable. They're carrying a higher burden, even though they're the most productive. So this is just something to be aware of. This is your most fertile soil. This is producing a lot of wealth. Don't take a lot of it off the tax base. Your retail sales. We got this from the state finance officer about your retail transactions. This is a chart of all the states across the country. In red this is the combined municipal tax flow of how municipalities pay for themselves. And when I say municipality, I'm saying city and county. The way that we see them, that's local government. Y'all need to work together and understand that you affect each other. So you're about in the middle of the pack. Most of your community is run off property taxes. You see in green, that's your retail taxes. Blue is transfer taxes, stuff that comes from the state or from the federal government. So basically, the good news is you actually control the property stuff. So you actually can benefit from the taxes. It's a cash flow you can handle. Retail moves with the economy. When people are out of work, they stop spending. If you're on the right end of this chart, if you're over at Louisiana or Arkansas, they basically can't afford their cities when people are out of work. So you're actually in a good position to be in the center or on the left. So this is your property taxes. We had to normalize it. We could only get your retail data by zip code. They wouldn't allow us to get individual businesses because of competition issues. So we had to take this map, which is at a parcel level, and kind of normalize it to zip codes. So you can see like what the peninsula is doing is popping up. This is your retail taxes. And that doesn't look like a big amount, but we're going to come back to this for the downtown in a second. And then this is your total productivity. So when you add your retail plus your property taxes, this is your cash flow. This is how your city, your region operates at a municipal level. Just zooming into the retail for a second and kind of stretching it out a little bit, we can see how much higher the two zip codes that are the peninsula produce in retail taxes. So that's people like me that come from Asheville and drop a bunch of money in tourism in the downtown, or that small businesses, or that old fabric that's there, those little corner stores, all that stuff. It's a high amount of retail in small square footage. Those two zip codes right there, just to put it in perspective, is about 3% of the entire state's retail taxes. Be proud of yourselves. I mean, think about that, that's insane. Those 2,000 acres of land produce 3% of the state's retail taxes. Is that mind-numbing or what? It's crazy. So just to run through some examples, on the top is the Mount Pleasant Walmart, on the bottom is the Tanger Walmart, which is pulling about, let's say, $867,000 an acre of value, which is about 1.5 times the value of the Mount Pleasant Walmart, and it'd probably be double the Walmart just up the street in value. So we took we're gonna hold on to the Tanger Walmart is let's call it the control subject. Everybody's got a Walmart in every community, we always grab them. So this is your Northwood Malls. Your Northwood Malls at about 1.8 million per acre. Again, we'll keep the Walmart down here at 800,000. So this is about double the value of the Walmart. Here's the Outlet Mall at about 2.7 million, which is worth double Northwood Malls. Again, these are just numbers to keep in your mind. And we'll come back to them. As you get into different typologies, on the top is this, I love that it's called the standard apartments. It's kind of your standard apartment. It's about 2.7 million, so it's about the value of the outlet mall. On the bottom, this is what happens when you start to add density in a strip mall. This is the strip mall here. This is a 3-story office complex, and it brings the value up to about 8 million. So cultivating that density and mix of uses, you're actually cultivating your wealth in the process. On the top is the Mount Pleasant Town Center, about 2.3 million. And on the bottom is that controversial Boulevard project. So for the folks in Mount Pleasant over there, at about 10.4 million value per acre. I just want to let you wash over this for a second. It's kind of funny when when I did my MapQuest Google Maps to drive around, and I Googled Mount Pleasant, the center of your community, Mount Pleasant, for the folks in Mount Pleasant, showed up at that town center thing. It's 2.3 million, let's say. When you get into the actual historic core of Mount Pleasant, where that star should have been, you're seeing that it's at about 7.8 million an acre. And again, this is what your ancestors gave you and bequeathed you in wealth. On the bottom is North Charleston. Now we're about, let's say, 19 million an acre for North Charleston. Who would have thought that Main Street, North Charleston, was pulling that kind of value? And again, keep it in perspective. Look at the Walmart over here at 866,000. Realize that Walmart is only going downhill from here. And this North Charleston stuff has come back and given you wealth for generations. So the Ion Town Center is about 12 million of value per acre. Again, compare that to the Mount Pleasant Town Center at 2.3 million. So what gives you more wealth? What pays you more taxes for your county? The infill that's going on in Mount Pleasant, this was a lot that was split into 3 houses. So these 3 tiny little houses that are here that don't have backyards or anything, that's pulling 13 million an acre of taxable value, which is more than the town center. So other infill projects, this is an infill project called Earl's Court in Mount Pleasant. These are little 3-story houses that are kind of pushed in, and they're about $11 million of value per acre. Again, harvesting new wealth. Mount Pleasant is building new wealth in a high potency way with these buildings, which is the basic Charleston type. You find them in this district, which is over in St. Philip Street in Cannon. This little Charles Street infill project is pulling about $7 million of value per acre. It's all built in the backyards of buildings. So again, these are things that you can find all over your community. When you do the MRI, you can see these little spots of tissue that produce wealth. So let's speak about your heritage. You have a tremendous heritage that was given to you, bequeathed to you, this history, this lost civilization of Charlestonians that have bequeathed you this incredible environment. This is your most valuable building in the entire region. This building is producing $103 million of value per acre. Is that going to kill anybody to do another one of those? You know, it's like, think about that. This is, but I'm just putting it out there. It was built in 1911. That's the picture of it right here. Although I don't know what happened at the top, so let me tore the top of it off. But think of this in your time, your portfolio over time. This is tremendous amounts of wealth. You don't even have to be a tall building like that. You can find, oh, by the way, I really dig the whole Revolutionary period. This is a great quote. This is me being a tourist, by the way. Don't tax me, don't tax thee, tax the fellow behind the tree. This is part of our DNA as our country. This is what started the revolution, right? So here's, oh, by the way, there's a revolutionary right there. This building was built in 1686. It's producing $13 million of value per acre. It's only 2 stories tall. I went in and talked to the owner. He got really excited. So what's kind of ironic about this is he's actually English. So it's funny that like right next door to him is where the English imprisoned us. And I guess we're gouging him now in taxes. Oh, sorry, he got really excited about the history of his building. He started pulling out these old pictures of this building. Here's a shot from the 1800s, and you see the horses. I mean, this building has produced a tremendous amount of wealth, and it's always sold liquor since the 1600s. Think about this. This is your history. This is about what we gave ourselves in the past. We can learn from this. On the wall, he has this great quote from Thomas Jefferson about taxes and taxing wine. We need to make taxation and how our cities function part of our literacy, the same way we talk about zoning codes. This is all about our cash flow. Just up the street, this is a building at $88 million of value per acre. It was built in 1718. So we started thinking, we're like, these buildings predate our country. So think about that. The Declaration of Independence was signed after those buildings were built. So we pulled all of that stuff. If you take all the buildings that predate, these are some plantations that are out here where there's apparently a building still on them. But just zooming into the core here, that's what they look like in 3D. That's down, right? Taking those same buildings and looking at them and comparing, ironically enough, they're about the same acreage as the Walmart out in Tanger. Here's what the Walmart paid in county taxes. Here's what this group of buildings paid in county taxes last year. So think about that portfolio contribution for over 240 years, consistently paying you that. Yeah, they weren't all gussied up throughout their entire life, but they never lost a tremendous amount of value, and they've come back to give you more. This was a whole lot of fun to find this stuff, by the way. We're nerds, we dig this stuff. So it's about 13 times the county tax production of the Walmart. That Walmart was built in 2005. So by Mr. Terrell's own testimonial, that Walmart's going to be gone by 2020. That's the reality of what's going on out there, the built environment and the decisions that are happening that affect your pocketbook and your future. So what's crazy about this, I mean, you know your history, you know better than I do. I mean, we find this, so this is the fire maps that community, that part of your town lived through. Massive fires, earthquakes, hurricanes, and it keeps on coming back, producing more and more wealth for you. Build resiliency. Those lessons are here from your predecessors. We're excited. We typically don't get a community that's got this kind of potency in it. Anyway, just looking at your model, this is the taxes, your Charleston County tax value profile. So that 18 Broad Street's about $100 million of value per acre. This is 88 Church Street, that 4-story building. In green is mixed use, blue is residential, and red is single-use commercial. So we have the malls over here. This is the Citadel Mall, Northwood Mall. This is Mount Pleasant Town Center with an E. This is the Kiowa Resort. The Kiowa Resort is your most potent building in total value, but it's like the big gas tank thing. So on a per acre basis, it actually falls in the middle of the pack. It's actually less value per acre than the Outlet Mall. Here's the historic Mount Pleasant downtown at about $8 million in value per acre. Here's Ion downtown at about $12 million. This is that Ion infill project. Here's that liquor store at $13 million. And then here are your Walmarts back here at about $500,000 and $800,000. These are just like pulling out little pieces of your model and just looking at them as a spreadsheet. So about 1.5 acres, 1.6 acres of the building on the left would equal the entire 58-acre Kilo Resort. This is math. It's kind of simple. It's actually fifth grade math. But this is Ion Town Center. About, let's say, 10 acres of Ion Town Center would equal the 66-acre Northwoods Mall. Think of that water map again. You only have so much land to harvest. Be aware of the potency of how you use it. This is that boulevard project. 5 acres of that boulevard project would equal the entire 23-acre Mount Pleasant Town Center. 2.8 acres of North Charleston would equal the 23-acre Mount Pleasant Center. Is Mount Pleasant still here? Did y'all get this? You writing it all down? Okay, cool. I'll give you all the slides, so this will be fun. But just go in with an informed decision about your data points and what your productivity is. And it's all you're basically awash in this data. You're awash in this history. And realize these are the relentless rules of humble arithmetic. If you just do the math on this stuff, you'll see a different reality. So we can look into an earthworm. I can show you what's going on inside that, right? It's like, why not do that with your own city? Investigate yourselves. Don't talk about things as what you think things are going on until you have data. So your buildings over time. In red is your population that you've grown in your county, and in blue is your city. So you had this massive explosion post World War II, where you shifted a lot more of your population out into your county. So we kind of, when Josh made this model, it was titled Pre-War and Post-War, and I asked him, which war are you talking about? Y'all had a lot in here. But it was World War II, so we separated them out. Just looking at the post-war community that you created, this is your value model of total development. So you've built a lot more of your total value post-World War II. When you pull the numbers on it, you're going to see a tremendous amount of wealth that you've created from a value perspective. But what you're not seeing is the longevity of that value and whether or not it will come back. So that Walmart that was built at $20 million depreciates to nothing. By the time it reaches its useful life, it's pretty much an empty husk. I mean, you've seen these things, these strip malls and old grocery stores that don't come back. They become landfill. So your population grew by about pre-World War II. You had 32% of your population in the old city, and you only covered about 14% of your land area. As you've expanded your population post-World War II, you've expanded your land coverage by over 86%. It's a lot of footprint. This is a scatter plot. I typically don't show these, but I wanted to show you that when you hit World War II, which is on the right, so on the bottom is your time. When you hit World War II, your value drops off the table. When you look back at your model at where your, quote, value is, it's everything pre-World War II. So get into your data. Look at the way that your community operates. Look at things. We with like an X-ray, you can see your streets. You can map your buildings. You can map your parking lots. Understand how much content you have covered with that, and also understand the tax flow. That your parking lot is going to be worth what, $5 a square foot, while a one-story junky building is going to be $100 a square foot. So you're getting more money out of your buildings. That's the only reason why the peninsula looks so great, is because it's dense. And just zooming across the bay there and into this little area here, and you look at this pattern, and it's there all before you. You can see the value of the peninsula up here, but you can start to see some spots in here. But if you put on a different set of X-ray specs and just look at your parking lots and your buildings, you're revealed a new pattern. When you say you don't have land, you've got plenty of land. It's all under asphalt, and people are being taxed at a very low level. There's essentially a built-in incentive to waste your real estate. Put simply, the junkier the building I make, the lower the taxes I pay. This is our cash flow. Just be aware of that. And be aware that when you have a scarcity of supply, you're also providing incentives out there. We're used to incentives like I come to a Mount Pleasant meeting, I ask for a density bonus. There's a public meeting, everybody calls me a murderer or something like that, and I freak out. And we go through that whole process, and I walk out the door, and then everybody gets swept out of office. That's our typical process of incentives. But just by the way that our tax system is set up, it builds incentives into the process. So don't hate Walmart, hate the game, understand the game, and understand that you're in control of that. So look at those patterns and see what's going on. And be literate about your tax policy. Our country was formed on a tax revolt. So there's a behavioral economics that's going on. There's numbers that are all out there. This is one of the typical things we do. This is turning off all the building value and just looking at the dirt. This is Cheyenne, Wyoming. This is probably one of the most obscene examples we've ever seen of this. This is low value to high value. Blue is cold, low value. Red is hot, high value. You expect the world to look like this, and everybody in that neighborhood has the same value per acre of dirt, right? Follow me? That you and all of your neighbors are paying the same square footage value of dirt in your taxes, removing all of your houses. Now, I was presenting this in Cheyenne to a group like this, and I was like, what's going on here, where this is 15,000, and as soon as you cross the street, it jumps up to 35,000. In the same zoning category, how could you double the land value per square foot just crossing the street? The tax assessor was sitting in the front row, and she raises her hand, and she goes, you don't understand. And I said, try me out, what am I missing? And she goes, well, the more land you have, the lower the value. The mayor just about spat coffee out of his nose. He was laughing so hard. I mean, think about that. The more land you have, the lower the value. That's a built-in assumption inside the tax models. So I said to her, I said, well, I've got 3/4 of a mile of street here, 3/4 of a mile of street, another half mile and a half mile. I've got 3 miles of infrastructure on this property. This fellow's got 200 feet. She goes, yeah, we don't count infrastructure in the assessment. Think of any business that would operate that way. Logitech, that built this clicker. Don't you think they figured out the cost of the plastic? Of course. So when we cash flow cities, we don't do that. We've been operating off a standard of taxation that was given to us by the English, which is all based on value. That's the way this model works. So I asked the assessor, I said, so who gave us this tax code? Did Moses deliver it? I mean, where did this thing come from? By the way, this is why I was at the assessors conference. I asked them that, and they thought this was hilarious, by the way. And I asked them, I said, look, y'all are assessors, where did this come from? And they're like, we don't know, that's funny. So I said, can we change this? And they're like, yeah, we probably can. I'm like, how do you change it? And they said, you need to talk to Larry. I'm like, Larry who? Like Larry Clark. So I tracked this guy Larry Clark down in the hallway. I'm serious, I'm not making any of this up. Their magazine is called Fair and Equitable. So I asked Larry, I said, how is this fair or equitable? He's like, well, it's not. I'm like, where did the standard come from? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, can you change it? He's like, yeah, I probably should. When you're looking at real estate economics, don't assume that people have stuff figured out. There's lots of like loose ends in there. So looking at, it's not an invisible market force that's making Walmart do what they do. They're doing the math to understand what's in their best business interest. Just do the same for your community. You're worth more than they are, you know? So we did the land value economics of yours. So this is just the dirt value. We turned off all the buildings. This was utterly amazing for us because this shows the value of your urban environment. What you've created is a sense of the place and what it's in value. You can see it in the peninsula. You can also see it when you zoom around, and you know clearly this is a commercial corridor, and you see anomalies that, again, on a per acre basis, this should be all level in the residential districts and the commercial districts. You're not as bad as Cheyenne, I'll say that. You guys are actually doing a pretty stellar job here. But when you zoom into places like this is looking east, hovering over Mount Ion. Now let's take a look at this for a second. On the beach, you start to see the things that you do at the beachfront. So you see that there's like higher spikes and lower spikes on the beachfront. It's because people that don't live there, that are out-of-state residents or whatever, that own the real estate, y'all tax them more, which that's cool. But if somebody owns a piece of property from New York, you're like really gouge them. I don't know if they know that. But what's interesting here is, here's Ion. It's effectively beachfront real estate. So let that wash over you for a second. You can create more urban environments throughout your community. You can essentially make more beaches. You can't make more beaches beachfront, but you can make the urban environment in your community. This is replicable form. And remember what we realized about North Charleston. That downtown has that same kind of potency to it, and it will for generations. So Michael Bloomberg said it best, and God we trust for everyone else bring the data. You need to understand the math on this stuff. And people say to me all the time, like, Joe, you don't understand, this is what America wants. We want to be spread out. We want to have a big yard, and I want somebody else to pay for my highway to get to my house. That's the way I want to live. Great. I want to be 6 foot tall and have a full head of hair. I think you should pay for it. That would make me happy. Like, why do we allow that in the conversation in our community? It's cool that we all want stuff, but what can you afford, right? So we got our case study of a community that actually built itself out in that pattern. It's called Winnette County, Georgia. Anybody from Georgia would know what Gwinnett County was. I was under strict orders in this presentation to not use the word urban, city, town, or municipal in the presentation. And I was like, all right, that's kind of wild. Well, why? And they told me, like, honey, you need to understand, we're rural people in Winnette County. We're out here, outside of Beltway. Lawrenceville's the county seat. It's a town of 35,000 people. So when we started doing the math, we realized there are 800,000 people in that county. So I called up our client, and I was like, Kelly, y'all are 800,000 people. She's like, yeah, but honey, we're 460 square miles. We're huge. What do I know? So dividing 800,000 into the 460 acres, that's density. This is about 1,900 people per square mile, which is less dense than DeKalb, Georgia, which is where Atlanta is. Now, being data nerds, we had a bunch of data, so we put it out there for them and showed it to them. And I asked the audience, I'm like, does anybody know what's in Mecklenburg, North Carolina? I'm like, how the hell did you guys get 200 people denser than Mecklenburg and not produce a Charlotte? You're 600 people denser than Nashville. Both of these places have professional sports teams. You don't. What's going on there? This is Austin. You're double the density of Austin. This is Raleigh. This is Asheville. This is what 35,000 people looks like in a rural environment. That's Chapel Hill, North Carolina. What did you all do? You know, as a planner, my head was exploded. I was like, I don't know how you can get this dense without creating a city. So we did their model, and Josh McCarty, who did your model, did theirs as well. And I was looking at Josh's model, and I'm like, that doesn't look right. Could you turn it on its side? So he turns it on its side, and this is it. This is their value profile. It looks like a 1970s shag carpet. It's like the same thing, straight end to end, right? This is what we typically see. This is Chapel Hill. So you see Chapel Hill, Carrboro, and Hillsborough, the three municipalities inside the county. You can see Main Street, Main Street, Main Street, Baby Bear, Mama Bear, Papa Bear, and then this is some new urbanism going on over here. You can see the value created in their profile. I'm like, how the hell did you guys do this? Their highest value per acre is $8 million per acre. Again, remember, y'all are 100 million. So this is what it looks like from a value profile. This is their highest value per acre in their community. Everything left of that is lower density. Just to rub it in, we put 3 counties side by side. Davidson County, which is Nashville, Austin, and Gwinnett County. We ran an economic heart monitor to show them how they're pulsing out. And we're like, okay, so we've got a peak value of 192 million in Nashville, which you guys are actually pretty close to. We've got a peak value in Austin of 476. Both those places are less dense, and y'all are flatlining at 8 million an acre. So I asked them, I said, look, you have all of the horizontal infrastructure that Austin has. Are you guys going broke yet? Because you don't have any of the money to pay for it. They're like, oh yeah, we're broke. How did that happen? You know, we don't feel the cost of that stuff until that first useful life, because I, as a developer, build a community, build the roads, build the pipes, I give them to you as a gift. You're on the hook to pay for them. And you feel that a couple generations out the door. I tend to think of this collapse that happened as some sort of, you know, it was all because of financial policies. No, there's incentives built into the system that we're not seeing, and we're not changing them either. You have to put those on the table if you want to keep yourselves out of that. So realize that this is all stuff you have to pay for. It takes generations to pay for it. Don't be obsessed with big data. You know, everybody's like, oh, what about big data? This is all stuff that you have sitting in your community. This is simple data. Start small. And I'll close with it's hiding in plain sight. My community is worth more than all of my professional sports teams in my state combined. We're about 13, almost 13 Panthers. I can tell you that the owner of the Panthers, Mr. Richards, knows Cam Newton's towel bill. The cups in our nightclub cost 5 cents a pop. You know, we know the numbers to be able to do the math on this stuff and keep our businesses afloat. Do the same with your communities. Thank you.